Hello and welcome to my channel. My favorite birthday cakes growing up was a Barbie doll cake, and I love to make these now. Here is my method. I bake 4 layers, a 9-inch layer, an 8-inch layer, a 6-inch layer, and a 4-inch layer. Cut holes in the center of each using either a circle cutter or freehand cutting it with a knife. You can use any cake flavor you like. My recipes are on my website at customcakesandcupcakes.com. For this cake, I'm alternating chocolate and vanilla cake layers. Start by adding a little buttercream to your cake board and secure your biggest 9-inch layer down. Spread buttercream on top of this as well as within the little hole you cut. Continue to stack and repeat this with the 8-inch layer, the 6-inch layer, and the 4-inch layer as well. Next, we'll get our doll ready. After you've taken off her clothes and wiped her down, I like to use 2 separate pieces of plastic wrap or cling film. The first, I put her arms up and her hair up. These keep her arms and hair out of the decorating. And the second, I wrap up her hips and her legs. It's important to use 2 separate pieces because the top one will be removed and the bottom one will stay in the cake until it's cut into. Using a serrated bread knife, start by making some rough cuts by just trimming off the edges of each layer. Your goal is to make a cone or dress shape. If you've seen my 3D Christmas tree cake tutorial, this is a similar method I use. After you have most of the rough edges trimmed off, continue to make more fine, small cuts to smooth it down into a cone shape. Often use some of the cake scraps I've trimmed off to sculpt a gradual top of the dress shape for the Barbie. You feel like the top is too round. The cake scraps you've trimmed off here can be saved and frozen and used for cakesicles or cake pops or other projects later. It may look and feel like you've trimmed off a lot of cake scraps, but actually starting with these 4 size cake pans, you trim off less than if you were to start with all 9-inch layers. We'll begin our crumb coat. I'm using an offset spatula. A layer of frosting will keep all the crumbs out of the outer decorating layer. By the way, I have this full written step-by-step tutorial on my website, customcakesandcupcakes.com. Included all the info about my process for making doll cakes, as well as links to products I find helpful, step-by-step pictures, recommendations, tips, and tricks. I'll also link this in the description below. The cake has been covered in frosting. I like to use these flexible cake smoothers. Scrape off any excess frosting and smooth it out. Really handy for any 3D or odd-shaped cakes. I link them in my Amazon storefront. You could also use an acetate sheet or a bowl, dough scraper, or any rigid food-safe plastic. This time we'll put the cake in the fridge for about 30 minutes to allow it to chill and set. Next, we'll make the top of her dress. This is the Barbie doll princess cake fondant bodice cutter from my shop, Custom Cutters and Embossers. I'll make sure to link this in my description. Cut out your bodice and then attach it to the doll using a brush of water. Gently add the bodice to the doll and hold it on for a moment to make sure it adheres. Trim off and press down any excess in the back. The cutter is slightly longer than a Barbie shape to make sure it fits multiple doll sizes. For her buttercream dress, I made 5 different shades of purple buttercream. We're doing an ombre style, which is a gradual movement from the lightest to the darkest shade. Find it helpful to mark out with a toothpick on your crumb coat where you plan to pipe ruffles, rosettes, or whatever you have planned for your doll's dress. I'm piping 2 large rows of ruffles around the bottom using a tip 125. It's a large petal tip. Wide end of the tip against the cake and the narrow end outward, moving your hand up and down in very small motions to create ruffles. I made 2 layers around the cake, the bottom, and then I also made some cascading ruffles down the middle, as you see here. I'm starting my rosettes with the darkest shade of purple buttercream frosting that I made. Squeeze with medium pressure to attach the buttercream to the cake and spiral around it one time, releasing at the end. I also like to overlap each of these slightly so the little tail is covered up and it leaves no open spots in the dress. And pipe a full roll of the darkest purple around the Barbie cake and then switch to the next lightest shade, or continue with whatever color you have planned. Repeated this until I had a row of rosettes in each of the 5 buttercream shades of purple I made. After I finished the rosettes, I went back to the very first piping tip we used, the 125, to add 2 rows of large ruffles at the top. Hide the seam created by the rosettes and the ruffles where they meet. I made some fondant ribbons using this ribbon cutter, which I'll link in my Amazon storefront below, and just attached it gently to the buttercream. On both sides, of course. I think it added a really neat design look. Lastly, I added some very small ruffles to look kind of like a peplum at the top using a 102 tip, a very small petal tip. I made some small fondant bows to go on her bodice and the top of her dress. This is totally optional, of course, but I think it's kind of a fun way to customize and add interest to the dress. Fondant attaches to fondant with some water, and fondant attaches to buttercream with some buttercream. Lastly, we'll take off the top piece of plastic wrap, put her arms back down, fix her hair, and here's what she looks like. One last thing I wanted to cover is how to personalize these cakes. It's often difficult with Barbie cakes or other 3D cakes to find a place to put the birthday recipient's name, message, or age. So oftentimes I'll make a little name plaque or message plaque. In this case, it'll look like a ribbon that I'll dry, let it harden, and then place in front of the Barbie so I don't have to ruin her dress. And here's what she looks like. Let me know what you think, what other colors would be fun, and how you would design your Barbie. Thank you so much for watching.